Okay, so that is the archetypes done. We're gonna now touch on the colorless cards. So we got some artifacts and land to cover, singular. And our first artifact here is Nutrient Block. So Nutrient Block is a single mana for a food. It has indestructible, and it says 2 tap, sack this artifact, you gain 3 life. And when this artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So a card we've seen kind of variants of here and there, but I think I'll let you kind of talk this one up if you so choose, if you want to. I think this one's going to be a little bit better than it usually is given the context of the set.
Yeah, mostly a black card, I think, because you like even blue has ways to sacrifice it. You don't really plan to put this in your deck, cracking it for the 3 life. I think it's like a 1 mana cantrip where you play it, you use it as an artifact, and then you kind of sacrifice it to something else. We both gave it a C, though. I think there's plenty of decks that'll be interested in Nutrient Block.
Yep, absolutely agree. It's like just the thing you play on 1, and then on 2, you have your thing that wants you to sack something, and you're kind of good to go. Or, just whenever that thing comes up that wants you to sack something. Next up is Thaumaton Torpedo, which is a 1 mana artifact at common. 6 tap, destroy, sacrifice this artifact, destroy target non-land permanent. This ability costs 3 less to activate if you've attacked with a spacecraft this turn.
Yeah, not just needing a spacecraft, but having it attack is kind of a hefty cost. So less optimistic about this one. We both gave it a D.
Yeah, I think this one is. We see this kind of card, kind of like emergency mode removal if you need it. Maybe it gets a buffer too because you care about artifacts here and there, but nothing I think I'm too excited to play. Chrome Companion is a 2 mana 2/1 artifact creature dog. When it becomes tapped, you gain 1 life, and you can pay 2, tap it, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library.
This one's interesting because I think it's potentially better than a lot of colored 2-drops.
Yeah, it's not a bad one.
It's not like that's not that far off of like a 2/1 lifelink for 2, which is not like super embarrassing. So if you're stationing with this, it's going to gain life. If you're able to attack with this, if you activated its ability, you're gaining life. And that life can potentially add up. You do need, so we talk about this being a slower set. You are going to still need some number of ways to impact the board in the early turns. So I could see this being like a fillery type card. We both gave it a C-.
Yeah, I think it's a good distinction to make. We've been saying sort of slower set. That doesn't mean glacial. It just means that you don't need infinite 2-drops, right? Like, if you miss your 2-drop, it's not the end of the world, but you'd still probably like to play something on turn 2. Next up, we've got a Spacecraft here. So this is Wormwall Sweeper. 2 mana, 2 generic mana. And I'm not even sure if we read up the full Spacecraft text, so let me just do that just to be sure. So Station says, tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on the Spacecraft, Station only as a sorcery, and it's an artifact creature if, for this example, for the Sweeper, the number of counters are 4 or more. So we've got a 2 mana 2/2 when you turn it on completely. 4+ is the number of charge counters you need. And when this enters, you surveil 2. So, like, maybe this is the thing you're okay with playing on turn 2. Like, a way to spend your mana on turn 2. You surveil, you set up your draws, and then becomes a 2/2 flyer. I think with this one and the next one we're going to look at, that 7 mana one we've been talking about, kind of reads to me as, like, okay, like, we know that people are going to need to have spacecrafts in their deck sometimes to make them functional, like for that red-white deck or for some other decks. And the ones you really want are at uncommon. But if you're stuck with the Wormwall Sweeper or that 7 mana one, it's fine. I think that this is more for, well, the aggro deck, the aggro red-white decks or whatever, the more aggressive-leaning ones. This is your placeholder, your filler. You're like, okay, if you need a spacecraft, you can play that. And then the 7 mana ones for like the more top-end ramp. Okay, if you need a spacecraft for your blue-green deck, you can play that. But yeah, what do you think about the Sweeper?
Yeah, so this is what people meant when they said there was a lot of sweepers in the format. Right?
Yeah, but Marc always has one. Always has one for set review. He's got lined up. I don't know when it's coming, but that was today's.
No, I totally agree. So I gave this a C-. You gave it a C. I do think this is almost like a synergy or build around grade, which is weird for such a generic looking card.
Yeah.
but you want like a reason to be putting this in your deck, exactly in line with what you were just talking.
Yeah, totally. And just like imagine the play patterns with this, right? You play it on 2, maybe or double spell it on 4, and like let's just take the 2, play this on 2 situation first. You play it on 2, you surveil, you play your 3-drop, you put 2 or 3 counters into it. The next turn, it's probably turned on as a 2/2 flyer. Like that's not super slow, mind you. This is 4. That's a very low number for these spacecrafts, but yeah, this one will get there pretty quickly. Next up,
This is like
oh,
the
yeah, go ahead.
only really, really tiny, easy to station one too.
Yes, most of the numbers are like 7, 8, 9 for the most part. Next up is Pinnacle Killship. This is the big one that we talked about. This one, the 7 mana that deals 10 damage to a creature when it comes in, and if you have 7 or more counters on it, it's a 7/7 flyer, which is just like massive to be honest. Like 7 mana card that comes and kills something and then turns into a 7/7 flyer. Like I don't know. I'm not starting super high on this one, but I could see this being like a fairly desirable card.
I wanted to go even higher on this. I genuinely think this is just a good card.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe that I got looking at this card. Then I'm like, wait, it's a colorless common. How good can it be? Was kind of the pushback I had with my own head. But I think it's just pretty good. So yeah, what did we grade this one?
We both gave it a C. I really wanted to go higher than that.
I know, yeah. But what fools
I
we
think
would look like if it's terrible, Mark.
I know, but also like people haven't really talked. Like we'll talk a bit about this. Something to keep in mind, as with all new card types, like not all battles were good, not all vehicles were good. Some are good, some are bad. But people really haven't talked a lot, from what I've seen, about the ratio of cost to station to size,
Yeah.
right? And like the cost and size on this, like 7 mana, 7/7, I actually would have expected the station on this to be higher than what it was.
Yeah.
For like, it's got a very strong ETB that's almost worth like what 5 mana kill anything is not like embarrassing in some sets.
Mm-hmm.
And for only 2 more mana, you're getting a huge, huge, huge flyer for not that much power compared to some of the rest of them. So yeah, I think this card's really good. Like you don't want to be in your super aggro deck if those do exist, but any ramp or slower deck or deck that cares about artifacts, I think you'll be pretty happy with the first copy of these, maybe even the first 2.
Yeah, no, totally. And I don't want to overlook the fact that this costs 7 mana. Like, we're kind of talking it up. That's within the lens of, yes, we understand this is a 7 mana card, but yeah, I agree with those thoughts totally. And then we've got some uncommon artifacts, but we'll talk about the land at the common slot here first. So Command Bridge is the only land at common. It enters tapped, and when it enters, you sacrifice it unless you tap an untapped permanent you control. And it taps to add 1 mana of any color. So this could just be like a land. You could tap a land to this. That's totally fine, right? Kind of a land you have to pay a mana for. Tap a spacecraft. That's maybe not doing that much. It's not a creature yet. You could tap a creature that wants to be tapped. I said at the beginning when we were talking about the archetypes that like you're not going to put this in every deck. I said that like kind of sheepishly though. I don't know, because like you might just play this in every deck with the lack of fixing, and I was kind of thinking you only can afford this if some of the time you've got a creature lying around that you don't mind tapping, or you're a spacecraft heavy deck, because paying a mana for this effect is a bit rough. But I'm curious to hear where you land, because I feel like we always slightly differ on our land gradings. So what's your take on this?
I'm usually higher on grading lanes than you, and I did go lower on this one, so I'm C minus. You're at a C.
Yeah.
Still both in the C range. I think that in your generic 2-color deck, like you won't play these, whereas you would have played like Evolving Wilds or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So that's yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, as soon as you're either splashing or, as you already mentioned, like there are some like the red-white deck wants you to have tapped things.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a tricky way to just tap one of your creatures if you need. Then yes, you're pretty happy to play it, but the rate on it's not great otherwise.
Yeah. No. Totally. So I mean, the nice thing is that it is a land that literally taps for a mana of any color. Like that is really, really useful in like your blue-green base ramp decks. Like that's a very nice thing. It doesn't lock you in, right? So that's one thing I could say about it. But proceed with caution with this one. I foresee myself saying we should cut this card from a lot of deck techs that I do in the near future.
Yeah, there's also not as many signposts to splash.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's often where you get some of your late pick power is from whatever color pair that no one's in. You get those uncommons late and you end up splashing those, but that's going to happen less in this set as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Moving on to some uncommon artifacts here. So we've got All Fate's Scroll is a 3 mana rock, taps to add a mana of any color. And it also has the ability 7, tap it, sack this artifact, draw X cards, where X is the number of differently named lands you control. That is a lot of cards you could be drawing with this.
You could, in theory, like the number you could draw in this set is like, what, 30 of the
Yeah.
different lands that are in print? 40 maybe?
There are is as far as there are not a lot of common lands or uncommon, but there are a lot of different rare lands. That's something to note for sure. We got the shock lands, we've got like all the bonus sheet cards are lands. So yeah, you could be drawing a lot of lands.
Yeah, I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek because yeah, at common and uncommon, there's very few.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave this a very high grade. I'll let you talk it up. I
Sure.
gave this a C, which I thought was already kind of optimistic. You have All Fate Scroll at a B minus. So this is our first 2 grade difference.
Yeah, so we've the 2025, the year of the Manolith, as some people have been calling it, where Blitzball kind of bucked the trend of Manoliths just being good cards that you kind of wanted in some decks. Blitzball in Final Fantasy was not particularly good, but I think that the the cost to drawing cards with Blitzball was pretty difficult to achieve. Like just sacking it when a legendary creature dealt damage to the opponent, that kind of didn't happen. This one's just the game stalled out. You've got the mana. Great. I can draw 2 cards at very worst. Often it's going to be 3, sometimes 4. And I don't know. I think it's kind of like a game plan to work towards, right? Like you just play the scroll on turn 3. You're happy to trade a bunch of stuff off. You're happy to just like point removal spells to your opponent's creatures. Like imagine you are a somewhat aggressive deck, right? Maybe a mid-range deck. Your opponent plays this on turn 3. Like play to 2, plays this, kills your next 2 creatures. I don't think you're feeling very good about that, right? This is kind of just like a ticking time bomb while this ramps them, while this fixes them. I don't know. You don't see the vision?
I just want to. Okay, so this is probably a good time to talk about this.
Great.
The archetype weighting is going to be kind of interesting in this set because of the fact there's no duels and not a ton of fixing, and there's also this huge influx at rare. Like the whole bonus sheet is all lands, most of which tap for colorless, but some of which are also very powerful. So there's going to be roughly 3 lands from the bonus sheet per draft, and they're not going to be super high picks, a lot of them. So you could have some of these, colorless lands in your deck. What kind of mana base do you foresee playing this in?
I think I would play this in like definitely any blue-green deck, because I imagine I'm splashing something. And at very least, strategically, this kind of lines up with what I imagine a blue-green deck wants to do. I don't think it's crazy to imagine it's like a blue-black control deck. I could even see like maybe a blue-white deck, some slower blue-white decks. We were talking about how white is a little bit, or can be, a lot of its commons point towards a bit of a more controlling plan. So that I could see. Of course, not advocating for this in any like aggressive leaning, and mostly not in a mid-range deck. But I think in any like it's any deck that falls on the right side of the fence of like, yeah, this is controlling enough, right? Like past that 50% mark of decks of like, yeah, I'm in that controlling space. I think it's going to be good there.
So do you see a minimum number of non-main pair lands to play this, or are you happy playing it in like a 2-color deck?
I think you probably want to both be making use of the mana that it's making, like the multicolored mana, and have this be like a draw 3. I think draw 3 is what you're aiming for at a minimum.
So, well, okay, yeah, probably we'll rehash this last time and then we'll move on. But I know for a fact you agree source count is very important.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And this does provide source count even for your main colors, not for your 1, 2, or 3 drops for anything after that. But you can't really go less than 9 of your main source. And then depending on how heavy your secondary color is, 8's kind of the minimum. Maybe can go a little bit lower if you're like super heavy base one color and a little bit lighter on the second. But with no duals, like you don't have a lot of space to include other lands.
I see
So
what you're saying.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you're basically like I'm kind of
probably
imagining we're mentioning all these bonus sheet cards. I'm kind of imagining the default for this is you're in like a deck that is using lander tokens. You have an island, a swamp, a plains, those cards to go get. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. Your point is how are you fitting that island, swamp, plains in there necessarily if there's no fixing for your two main colors? That's your contention here, right?
not so much because I do
Oh,
think
okay.
you can build what you said. I just wanted to see if that's the shell you're envisioning because you're
I
talking
see.
about like blue white and blue black and everything, and I just want to know like blue white with one swamp and not a ton of ways to get it. You're not into this, right? Like you need to be kind of doing the thing.
Yeah. I think maybe I should give this like a synergy or build around a grid or whatever. I think we're mostly on the same page though. Yeah. Maybe I'm just a little
Okay.
more excited about in the deck I think it belongs in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So a long time on that. Sorry. Sorry for those who want to get to Dauntless Scrapbot, which is a very cute little guy. 3 mana, 3/1 for an uncommon artifact creature. When it enters, exile each opponent's graveyard. Okay. Not a ton of relevance for that in this set, but there's a little here and there. And you make a lander token. That's real nice. So there's a green common we talked about briefly that is a 3 mana 3/3 that makes a lander token. There's a 3 mana 3/1 that makes a lander token, and any deck can play it. Seems pretty solid.
Yeah, I love this card. It's got extra power to station your spacecraft.
Yeah.
It blocks well. It like trades well. It fixes your lands. It gives you us 2 pieces of cardboard. We both gave it a B minus.
Yep. Seems good. Next up is Virulent Silencer. Jeez. 3 mana for a 2/3 artifact creature. Robot Assassin. It's an uncommon that says whenever a non-token artifact deals damage to an opponent, combat damage, that player gets 2 poison counters. And this is the only poison card in the set, for what it's worth. And for those who don't know, a player... Oh? Am I wrong? There's one more?
Moth Nexus.
Oh, okay. There's a bonus sheet card. Sorry. Yeah. For those who don't know, a player with 10 poison counters loses the game. You are correct. You're technically correct. There is one more on the bonus sheet. So
this is really good with it too, right? Like
yeah, because Ink Moth actually, it's a 1 mana. It's a land that turns into a 1/1 flyer with Infect, so it gives them a poison counter. Gives them 3, of course, with this thing. So yeah, I mean, I think this is like, it kind of reminds me of Finn, of course, because that's also a poison card. But the baseline of the card is bad, where Finn is like, it's a 2 mana 1/3 death touch. That's pretty darn good. This is a 3 mana 2/3, which is not very good.
yeah, this would have been really interesting at common because if you could pick up a couple of them, it becomes a real plan.
Yeah, for sure.
You're only going to get an average of basically 1 of each uncommon per draft. So we both gave it what I think is probably still too optimistic a grade at D plus.
Yeah.
But one for the dreamers here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Next up is Survey Mechan, which is a 4 mana 1/3 artifact creature, flying hexproof. Very strange stat line. 4 mana 1/3 flying hexproof. It's got the ability 10. Sacrifice this creature. It deals 3 damage to any target. Target player draws 3 cards and gains 3 life. This ability is reduced by X, where X is the number of differently named lands you control. So, mostly it's going to be, a 7 mana ability and a 6 mana ability sometimes in the decks that would be interested in this card?
Right, because again, we talked about this already at length with All Fates Scroll. But there
yes. Do you want to rehash that one? We can go back and talk to...
These sets of reviews are long enough, Alex, okay? We won't rehash
I have
everything,
a different take on it now. Anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think that there is a deck there for this. If you're paying 6 for this ability, I think you're reasonably happy. 7, I think, is still probably okay. I gave it a C. You gave it a C+.
Yeah, because, just for what it's worth, that ability's really good. Deal 3, gain 3, draw 3. That's... You're very happy about that. So I think it's, worth taking turn 4 off, quote-unquote off to play this card. Next up, we've got... Yeah, instant speed, too. You can block Zach. Next up is Bygone Colossus, the combo robot. This is 9 mana, 9/9, but it has warp. Or also an artifact creature, by the way. It has warp for 3 mana. So most warp cards have enter the battlefield effects or a static ability. This is just vanilla, but it's a massive vanilla creature. So the joke here, of course, is you play this, you warp it in for 3 mana, it instantly turns on most of your spacecrafts. You get to tap this to one of your spacecrafts. But
yeah, a few other ways to do it too. There's some ways to give it haste, so you can like attack with it the turn it warps in.
You can blink it.
Interesting card.
There's a card that blinks. So turn 5, you go like this and then blink it.
Yep, I think we both gave it like a build around grade. I don't just have the raw letters here, but I gave it a C minus. You give it a C.
Yeah, I think very much you'll know it when you see it when you want this kind of card, and when you want this card is probably when you've got something in the neighborhood of like four spacecrafts. Okay, so we're going to the white cards now, and these are going to be the cheap cards first. We're starting with commons. Focus Fire is a single white mana for an instant at common. It deals X damage to target attacking or blocking creature, where X is 2 plus the number of creatures and or spacecrafts you control.
Yeah, very efficient card. Like that can deal a lot of damage for 1 mana, but also these attacking or blocking things are always better on defense because if you're attacking, you don't want them to be able to block first. So both of us a little skeptical on this. I gave it a C minus. You gave it a D plus.
Yeah, I could be convinced it's more of a C minus kind of card. It's just like we've alluded to, this is more of a slow controlling card. It doesn't get a blocker out of the way, which is a pretty big deal for your aggro decks. But it scales fairly nice and it's really cheap. So I think I'm too low on it. I'll join it C minus, but I don't think this is going to be white's like, gotta have this removal spell. Next up
I'm just going to pause you for a second.
Yeah.
Does anyone from chat hear you sounding kind of robotic, or is that just me? So
it's a good
like
question.
almost like the sound is clicking a little bit.
Interesting. Tis a
I
good
don't
question.
know if that's my setup or if it's all good there. Okay.
Okay.
So no clicks. Okay, so something to do with my audio. Maybe I'll just see if I kicked anything. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, this card would be phenomenal if it wasn't attacking or blocking. What is it? The Patriarch's Humiliation from whatever set that was, Baldur's Gate?
Okay, hopefully I just jiggle all my wires. We'll see if that did anything.
Cool. Hello?
Yeah, I think that might have been
cool.
it. So
next up, we got Squire's Lightblade, which is going to be very familiar looking if you play Final Fantasy. Single white mana for a flash equipment. When it enters, you attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains first strike until end of turn. The equipped creature gets +1/+0. The equip cost is 3. So it's kind of like Coral Sword, but a nerf version because the equip cost is 3 instead of 1. And Coral Sword wasn't particularly great. We kind of had high hopes for the card. It ended up not being amazing. I think especially in this set where it's going to be less, we assume anyways, a little bit less about tight creature combat, I'm pretty out on this.
yeah, and Coral Sword, like there was a whole equipment benefit going on. Like there was a bunch of reasons to want equipment. It was in a color that wanted to get into combat a little more than I think white does here. So you still gave this a C minus. I think this thing is probably just bad, especially because there's a bigger delta in creature sizing in this set too, right? So like if you have a bunch of 3 and 4 power things, in most sets, +1 and first strike would let you attack through anything. But in this set, they could just have a 7/7 flyer in play.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I give this a B.
Creatures do not scale linearly in this set. It's kind of like you use a trick to attack your small creature into their big creature, but their big creature is really, really big. And I agree. That one must have slipped through the cracks. I would join you on that D there. Do not think it's going to be very good. Starport Security up next. Single white mana for a 1/1 artifact creature. It has a 4 mana, 3 and a white tap ability. Tap another target creature. This ability costs 2 less to control if you have a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. So, pretty hefty cost for the 4 mana. You really, really need to have a counter on this to consider playing it. It's a cheap spell for double spelling, if you care about that. It's a cheap artifact, if you care about that. I don't know.
It also is a really, really bad way, but does work to trigger your red white tap. Like you could tap your own creature
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
that's
trigger.
true. And one thing to note is that like not only does this like tap itself, but yeah, like you say, tap something else you want. Yeah, it's kind of cute. It'll come up sometime, I'm sure.
It's also got like it's a one drop that is legitimately relevant in a super long grindy game.
Yes, that's a good point.
So there might be something there. Neither of us are still optimistic. I gave it a D plus. You gave it a C minus.
Yeah, there's a lot of little interesting things about the card, but I don't think they add up to like, ooh, this is better than you think. At least not to that level. Maybe better than you think on first read, but not a card where it's like, oh, this is sleeper common that you really want to pick up. Dock Worker Drone is a 1 and a white 1/1 artifact creature. Enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, you put its counters on another target creature you control. Kind of nice. Yeah, usually we see this as just like, in these care about counter decks. 2 mana 1/1 comes with a counter, but giving its counter when it dies, or any counters, like that's a pretty big upgrade.
Yeah, this is one of the very few aggressive, scary two drop creatures at common.
Mm-hmm.
We both gave it a C plus.
Yeah, really nice. And an artifact creature to boot. Like, can't complain about that. Starfighter Pilot up next. 1 and a white for a 2/2. When it becomes tapped, you surveil 1.
Yeah, power like slightly worse than Fear of Surveillance or whatever. Or I guess we've had a few versions kind of like this, but these are always at least solid. We both gave Starfighter Pilot a C.
Yeah, these are always like, you're never thrilled about it, but you're like, yeah, okay, I'm happy to fill out my 2-drop slot with this. Banishing Light up next, a very simple one. This is 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters, you exile target non-land permanent until exile non-land permanent an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So just your very typical white enchantment-based removal spell.
Yeah, no upside, but like catch-all removal is probably better than usual here because it does deal with anything. We both gave Banishing Light a C plus.
Yep, totally. Bright Spear Zealot is a 2 and a white 2/4 vigilance. And whenever you cast your second spell, this creature gets +2/+0 as long as you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. So like, I don't know, like ever so slightly better than average body, kind of like 2/4 for 3 mana vigilance. Like that's okay, passable. You really do want to be triggering this each turn for it to feel like you're happy with this as a 3-drop card, though.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was thinking, okay, you can play one spell pre-combat and then go into combat, and like your trick threatens to boost this in combat.
Yeah.
But there's literally no what like there's the equipment thing we just saw, but there's literally no trick in white. There's no combat tricks.
Oh, is there really? I didn't even clock that. Wow. Okay.
It's just the +1/+0 and first strike equipment. That's it.
Interesting. Interesting.
So for that reason, I'm like pretty down on this. It's not that easy to do it, and even if you do, like double spelling is not that aggressive of a thing. I gave this a D. You were more optimistic at C minus.
Yeah, another one I think I'm probably going to join you on, just at least down half a step or something. Next up is
Should I pull up a screenshot of you saying that all of our disagreements are ones that you had right?
Yeah. Before we hopped on, Mark checked out. You can plug our tier list into 17 lands, and it tells you how big of a difference are you between this card, like the whole list of cards. And Mark was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm really happy because I think the ones we differ on, I'm right about." And I said the same thing. Clearly, so far hasn't been true. So far, Mark's been right. Exosuit Savior is 2 and a white for a 2/2 flyer. When it enters, you return up to 1 target permanent you control to its owner's hand. Okay, so it's like 3 mana 2/2 flyer. Very unexciting. I would even argue, dare I say, bad. And when you draw it in the late game, maybe it picks up something you're happy to pick up.
Yeah, this has had flash in all the recent sets, and I think if it had flash here, it would have been quite good because there's like the value matters more than the tempo loss.
Yeah.
But without flash, it's pretty hard to get going. We both gave it a D plus.
Yep. Nothing too special. Flight Deck Coordinator up next. 2 and a white for a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creature, you gain 2 life.
This is the definition of doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I
those.
gave it a
Yeah,
D, I gave it a
exactly.
D.
That's a great way to
Yeah.
put it. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, both gave it a D. This
Yeah,
one
you're on
also
D plus. Yeah,
D
same
plus.
thing. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Very strange card. This is, I mean, it's not that strange, but it seems kind of underpowered to me. Zealous Display is 2 and a white for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. If it's not your turn, untap those creatures. So like a weak Anthem effect in a set where like you're not making that many tokens, and the untap is like also very strange because like, okay, I guess I get to trade on blocks. Like, I don't know. It's a weird card.
If it untapped on your turn, at least it could have been like a turbo crew. Your
Yeah.
like station or everything. So like the idea is, I guess, that you tap all your stuff to station and then they attack thing. But we're both even less interested in this than the last card. I gave it a D minus. You gave it a D.
Yep. Next up is Night Luminary. This is 3 and a white for a 3/2. When it enters, you make a 1/1 human soldier token, and it's got warp for 1 and a white. This one I'm pretty interested in. So like, you cast it on 2, make a token. Cast it on 4, you've got, for 1 card, you got 3 bodies, 5/4 worth of stats. Like that's a lot of bodies.
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever companion, like, because it's basically a 2 mana 1/1 draw card for
Right.
2 mana, and the card you draw is your Night Luminary, which by itself, like we've seen 4 mana 3/2 +1/1 before, not that exciting, but I think the warp gives it enough juice to make it a pretty good card. I gave it a C plus, and you went up to a B minus for Night Luminary.
Yeah, I just feel like 3 bodies on a common is like, or any card, but like you don't see cards that make 3 bodies on commons. It's kind of why I gave it a little bit more of a bump. I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Yep.
Lux Knight Breacher is 3 and a white for a 2/2. It enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature and or artifact you control.
Other, yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
count
other,
itself.
yeah, it doesn't count itself.
So it can be pretty big. It works with the green-white counters theme, but again, if the set's full of removal, it won't matter. So we both gave it a D plus.
Yeah, it's kind of just a big dummy. Yeah, pretty out. Radiant Strike. This is kind of an interesting one. This is 3 and a white for an instant. Destroy target artifact or tapped creature. You gain 3 life. So like, again, it's a defensively minded removal spell. Blows up spacecrafts, which is kind of nice, right? Like, if you can blow up a spacecraft before it becomes a creature, or like, at instant speed at least, there's going to be some turns where it's like, okay, they tap their things, and they're thinking that their spacecraft can attack or block, and you kill it. You gain 3 life is always nice, but yeah, again, just kind of weird with what White's themes want to do, this being a defensive-minded removal spell.
Yeah, I totally agree. We both gave it a C. Seems solid, but not sure what the shell is for
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Auxiliary Boosters up next. This is 4 and a white for an equipment. When it enters, you make a 2/2 robot token. Equip it to this equipment. The equipped creature gets +1/+2 and has flying, and the equip cost is 3. So 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer, basically, with the equip cost of 3 to reattach. So it's like a common Dragoon's Lance from Final Fantasy. A pretty like good 5-drop though, as far as 5-drops go.
Yeah, I really like this card.
Yeah.
We both gave it a C plus. Like, it's expensive, but it backs it up, and a lot of the games will end up being contested in the air in this format, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good way to make sure that you're either the one pressing your advantage or that you're able to block when they do eventually make their huge spacecraft.
Totally. Yeah, I think this looks a little unassuming, maybe, or maybe a little bit clunky, but I imagine this is going to be one of White's best commons.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Whiffblade Enhancer up next. 5 and a white for a 3/4. When it enters, you put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Warp for 3 mana, 2 and a white. So like,
Yeah, I found this one tough.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, 3 mana, put 2 counters on some stuff. Like, okay, that's not the worst free card, quote unquote free card.
Right, because is it like the warp? If you can come out of the gates quickly and play a 1-drop and 2-drop,
Mm-hmm.
warp on this is pretty good. And then even in the late game, like this is a card where you really do want to warp it, because if you're just spending 6 mana on, 5, 6 worth of stats, probably not quite doing it. But once you've warped this, like all the creatures can do stuff when they come into warp, whether it's station a vehicle or get haste and attack or something. But like 2 counters, draw a card, and then get this later. We've seen so many times that adventure cards that seem unassuming, when you combine them, become a good card. And I'm wondering if this might secretly be part of that group.
Yeah, also just as far as the +1/+1 counter deck goes, a lot of times in the past with +1/+1 counter decks, one of the kind of bottlenecks or awkward things about it has been it's kind of hard to get the counters on the creatures you want to get the counters on. Where it's like there's a lot of cards that your creatures with counters on them have trample, have lifelink, have whatever, and often you're reliant on cards that put counters on themselves to do that in a lot of spots. But the fact that this gives you something that not only you get to put it on one thing but two things. We talked about the gold uncommon that draws cards whenever a creature with a +1/+1 counter hits. Like this is kind of what I'm thinking, where it's like, okay, you get to put this on your 1/1 flyer or whatever. You get to put this on your, base thing that's going to get in that turn. So yeah, I like that modularity. I like like you said, the adventure aspect of it. All in all, I don't imagine this will be an awesome card, but probably just a bit better than it looks.
Yeah, I might be too low. So I gave it a D plus, which I think I might be maybe too low. You gave it a C minus.
Yeah, exactly. I feel pretty comfortable with that C minus. All right, moving on to White's uncommons now. So back to the cheap stuff. And we're starting with Honor. This is a single white mana for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Draw a card. Really elegant card. It's a single mana, a one-word name, very simple rules text, and I think pretty good too.
I really like this card. You do need to be careful about getting blown out, though. Like, it doesn't have that combat tutorial text
Yeah.
of targeting the player as well. But it's kind of sad that this won't end up in the green-white player's deck, because it's amazing there. It's just a good card.
Yeah, it's just a good card, which, I mean, I think that might be slightly surprising to some people. Like, it's very efficient. Combat tutorial as a comp is interesting, because it's like, combat tutorial, for those who didn't play Final Fantasy, was like 3 mana, draw 2, put a counter on something you control. So you're basically getting like more than half the card for less than half the cost. If you want to kind of look at it that way, it's a little bit cheaty to look at it that way. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good card.
Well, the difference between being card neutral and card advantage is pretty significant.
It's big. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Grades, though, I gave it a C plus. You gave Honor a B minus.
Next up, we've got Reroute Systems. This is a single white mana for an instant. It's modal. Choose one. Either target artifact or creature gains indestructible till end of turn, or Reroute Systems deals 2 damage to target tapped creature. Good modes. Like, whenever you look at a modal card, you're thinking, how different are these modes? You want the card to be relevant in a wide variety of game states, and it's pretty different where we're going to want to use those 2 modes.
There's a whole bunch of ways to deal small amounts of damage for small mana in this set. And typically those cards have been very high performers, like we saw, Disfigure and Burst Lightning in Foundations, and so many other examples, Grimbauble in DFT, all top performers. I'm wondering if, because people are maybe going to play less 1 and 2 drops, that it's not going to perform as good in this set. Like, that's kind of my working theory.
Yeah, no, I can buy that for sure. I guess I'm just in for that. Like, I see it as sort of a buyout, might not be the right way to put it, but I see this card as mostly you're putting it in your deck as the protection effect, because I think that's just the more generically relevant effect. And yeah, sometimes you'll be like, oh yeah, pick off their cheap flyer. I guess one thing that is a little bit awkward is that, unlike a lot of recent protection effects, this only gives indestructible, not hexproof. So like that's actually a pretty big difference too. I didn't actually, I think I shortcutted it to hexproof as well when I graded it, so I probably graded it like half a grade higher. But what did we give it?
I gave it a C. You gave it a C plus.
Yeah, exactly. I'll join you at the C. I like C for this. Seam Rip is up next. Single white mana for an enchantment. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. So it's an enchantment version of Portable Hole. And it's narrow, but it's very, very efficient. Maybe kind of a similar thought to what we had about the last card, where it's a little bit, the cheap, very efficient removal spell is not exactly the best kind of interaction in this format. I still think you're going to play this like in most white decks you have, though, right? I don't think you would cut this card.
My gut says that I disagree. So you graded this too higher because of that disagreement. You're on a C. I'm on a D plus.
Yeah.
Even if it does fall on my side, though, this type of card would be a fantastic sideboard.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. No matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A little bit of difference there. I guess I like it a little more. Dual Sun Technique up next. 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature you control gains double strike until on its turn. If it had a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. Oh, that's a combat trick. You mentioned no combat tricks, but I guess at common, that is.
Yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah, this is great if you are in the like green-white counters deck. We both gave it a C-.
Yep. Seems about right to me. Honored Knight Captain is a 1 and a white 1/1. When it enters, you make a 1/1 token, and you can pay 4 white, sack this creature, search your library for an equipment, put it onto the battlefield. Okay, so like 2 mana, make 2 tokens, one of the few ways to go wide, and I guess ideally, unless you have some, actually I don't even think there is a good rare equipment. I was gonna say, unless you have a good rare equipment, but mostly you're going to get the white 5-drop flyer that we were just looking at. And that's a pretty nice thing.
I graded this assuming you'd have 1 or 2 of those in your deck. I'm not sure if you did or not. I think if you do have those to find, this card is excellent. Like that's again an instant speed ability, so you can block, sack, or you can even sack and like bring it in as an ambush blocker.
Totally.
I gave Honored Knight Captain a B-. You gave it a C+.
Yeah, no, I didn't consider the block sack aspect. Usually they limit these kind of sacrifice for value things to sorcery, and no, you're right. I think that adds enough value that I'd bump it up a little bit. Next up is Pulsar Squadron Ace. 1 and a white for a 1/2. When it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a Spacecraft from among them, put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, comes in with a 1/1 counter. Or put a counter on this card. So you got like a 2 mana 1/2, find a card, draw a card, or a 2 mana 2/3 that helps out your synergies for the +1/+1 counter decks.
Do you consider this to require a certain number of Spacecraft, or are you happy just playing it as a...
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I guess the way I would look at it is you could play it if you needed a 2-drop, if you don't have enough 2-drops in your deck. I'm not happy about it, though. I think it's kind of like, all right, 2 mana 2/3 vanilla, unless you care about the counter. So basically, yeah, if you care about the counter, or you care about or have enough Spacecrafts, I think it's a good 2-drop. If you don't, it's like a fine, serviceable one.
Right, and it's good enough that you don't need like a ton of Spacecraft.
Yes. No, I agree. Like 3, maybe even 2, you're fairly happy about it?
Yeah, that's exactly the line I was going to draw. Like 2, you're okay with it. 3, you're probably happy with it. 4, it's probably like really good.
Yeah, cool. Next up is...
we graded it the same as the last card. B- for me, C+ for you.
Great, thanks. Sunstar Expansionist. 1 and a white for a 2/3. When it enters, if an opponent has more lands than you, you make a lander token. And the landfall ability is it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So 2 mana 2/3 that, like, if you're playing it on the play, you can kind of just treat it as a 3/3, the 2 mana 3/3. If you're playing it on the draw, maybe it ramps you, maybe it catches you up. Always a little bit awkward with this kind of like white catch up kind of effect, because like even when you are on the draw, you often have to play this instead of a 3-drop. Like you're often like spending quote unquote a mana, because if you can't spend that additional 1 mana, you're like, okay, well I didn't really get like an awesome deal on this. But there's gonna be some times when you're like, yeah, I was just missing my land drop anyways. You're pretty happy about it.
Yeah, on the draw, I think you try to treat this as a 4-drop.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because you do need your opponent to hit their first 4 land drops. but then you untap with 3 lands, play this, play your 4th land, and then you can even crack the lander on their turn and threaten 3/3 on blocks.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work on turn 2 because you have to play your land to play your 2-drop. On turn 3, you're almost always going to waste the mana, like if you play it and then play your 3rd land. So turn 4 is probably the sweet spot for this on the draw, but still solid. We both gave it a C+.
Yep. I like the card quite a bit. Sundual Adepts is 2 and a white for a 2/2 double strike and has the ability 5 to have your creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. That's a good body. Like 2 mana 2/2 double strike goes pretty solid.
Yeah, I like this card. I put this into the B range actually. I gave it a B-, even though you're not going to be going super wide. Just super threatening on its own. You gave her a C+.
Yep, good card. Emergency Eject is probably a card that you shouldn't play very often, but I imagine will make its way into a lot of people's decks. This is 2 and a white for an instant. Destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a lander token. This card, this variety of card always is kind of like a newer limited player trap where they're like, I can kill, especially if you're coming from Commander, where it's like, oh, I can kill anything. And what do they get? They're just a lander token. It really matters. Like anything, a 1/1, any little piece of material, it's not free. This is not just a catch-all removal spell. So I treat these as sideboard cards generally, only bring it in if there's like something you absolutely can't deal with otherwise. But yeah, I would not choose to main deck this card.
Yeah, it's not quite an F in this set. Like probably like a set reviewer's F would probably be a responsible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you are short on removal, it does answer anything. We both gave it a D.
Yep. Next up is Rayblade Trooper. 2 and a white for a 2/2. When it enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever a non-token creature you control with a +1/+1 counter dies, you make a 1/1 token. Has warp for 1 and a white.
Yeah, kind of a nice version of this because it does, like, it can go on itself. It doesn't have to go on itself. It's got a lot of modality between being able to target the counter anywhere. So, like, at worst, this is kind of a 3/3 that dies into a 1/1 for 3 mana, which is not too bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the best way to look at it. And it's, like you said, a lot of modality. Seems good. Yeah. What do we give it?
Yeah, I give it a C+. You were a little lower on a C.
Yep. Next up is Scout the Survivors. This one's kind of interesting. 2 and a white for a sorcery. Return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. So it really incentivizes you to have a bunch of 1-drops, not just reanimate a 3-drop.
Right. If you can hit multiple things with this, it's great. This is one I kept moving down as I did the archetypes because I realized there's just very few 1 and 2 drops in most decks that I think are going to end up. And it is kind of finicky. If you can get 2 counters on things, like 3 counters is amazing. 2 counters is still excellent. You do need to have some really good targets for this, though. I was down on C- for this, and you are up at a C+.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an optimistic C+, as in you've got it in the right deck, you've got enough 1-drops, but I definitely agree that I don't think this is going to be something draft in, draft out. You're like, oh, hey, I've got a bunch of 1s. Just doesn't really seem like the set for it. Although, I always feel like sometimes we say that, and it's like, oh, there's more decks than I imagined that would be the case for. So, like, on average, I think it's still true, but you're probably going to find some spots where it looks pretty good. And like we said, the more cheaper things you can get back with it, the better. Next up is, this is really cool. I actually really, really like this card. All Fate's Stalker is a 3 and a white 2/3 that says when it enters, exile up to 1 target non-assassin creature until this creature leaves the battlefield. It's got warp for 1 and a white. Worth noting, non-assassin, it is an assassin, so just, to prevent kind of misclicks there. But also, there's like 3 other assassins. I think 2 in black and 1 as an artifact. That, like, the poison card, I think we looked at, that was an assassin. So, modes of this card, there's many of them. 4 mana, comes in, eats a thing to the slaves. Okay, it's pretty standard affair. But the warp mode is interesting, because you can get a blocker out of the way for a turn. Or you can kill a token. Or you can Like, if you've warped in something else, you can then warp in this, and then it'll blink the first thing you warped in, and that'll stay for good, right? You can re-trigger an Enter the Battlefield effect. So, yeah, it's like very, very modal. It's not the kind of card you're gonna like hold to get max value on. If there's something you want to kill, you want to kill. But yeah, I think it's just a really cool card overall.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. You mentioned all the examples. Yeah, the warp interaction with other warp things is probably the cutest.
Oh, sorry, Mark. I'm gonna try this one more time. I think I might have to do a reconfiguring here, but we're good for an hour or so. All right. Give me a test.
If you want.
Sorry, say again.
I can get something to eat if you want to, like.
No. Let's finish white. We'll finish white and then we'll get done. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Am I good to go?
Yeah. Check. You're good.
Okay. I couldn't have said it better. You mentioned all the examples I'm thinking of. The cutest one being, with other warp cards saving on the cost there and kind of blinking it and cheating in like that 9/9, for example, is going to be. We both gave it a B.
Yep. Really cool. And also, one thing to note, I think, about these kind of cards, they're like white creatures that have this effect. If you can, you really want to like not target an Enter the Battlefield effect creature. Try to hit a token, right? You want to really be like, all right, even if you kill this, I feel pretty good about it. Next up is Sunstar Lightsmith, which is a 4-mana 3/3. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature and draw a card. Okay, so, this is, I feel like they've been tempting us lately with like these 4-mana plus creatures with no Enter the Battlefield effect, no protection. I was pretty out on them in the past, so just like, these are just across the board bad. But I think now we were kind of in an age of, is it worth it if you untap with it? How good is this if you couldn't untap with it? And maybe this isn't the best card to soapbox about this exactly because it can have an Enter the Battlefield effect. You can hold it till turn 6 or 5 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the upside here is pretty nice. Like continually drawing cards or even just drawing 1 cards is something, yeah, that I'm pretty interested in.
It feels like even last year this would have been printed as a 2/3.
Yeah, they're definitely like, all right, we gotta juice these 4 drops and 5 drops a little more. So yeah, what do we end up? Oh, sorry, go first.
We both gave it a C, so yeah. we both believe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I believe very fitting for an alien. Do you believe that's after my time or before my time? But did you ever watch the X-Files? Were you an X-File guy?
Not really, but it was my time, but I didn't watch it.
Okay. I just randomly like zinged Mark there. Mark just catching strays, me calling him old, even though he's not that much older than I am.
I'll be 40 soon. It's not that far away. It's the honest truth.
Yeah. Next up is Wedge Light Rammer. This is 3 and a white for a Spacecraft. Comes in with a 2/2 token. 2/2 artifact token. So kind of cool. The creature turns into a Spacecraft, turns into a creature when it's got 9 counters on it. Flying first strike 3/4. So kind of interesting. Like these, when I first saw this card, it's like, okay, this is the Spacecraft version of a vehicle that crews itself. Not exactly the same, but it does help that it comes with some help.
I find it interesting, like how the size to station cost for this one is a pretty big gap.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like that's a lot of counters for a 3/4.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I said the token helps, but it almost kind of doesn't. Like, I think they balanced it out where it's like this would generally cost like 7, maybe even less than that. So it's like the 9 is kind of fake in that way where it's like, yes, this helps pay for it, but like it's just getting it back down to normal, basically.
Yeah, I'm still somewhat of a believer in this. Like, I gave it a C, you gave it a C+.
Yeah.
But for the like body making Spacecraft version, often these would have been like, in the B range for the uncommon, and I'm less optimistic of this being in the B range.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Next up is, this one's a banger. This one's real nice. Starfield Shepherd. 3 white for a 3/2 flyer. When it enters, you search your library for a basic plains card or a creature card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Also has warp for 1 and a white. That's crazy good.
Likely the play pattern is warp this on 2, get a plains, and then like on 5 or wherever you want to play it, you then get your 1 drop and add to the board. And there is a at 1 mana value in each color. So
Yeah,
there
common of
are
each. Yeah,
targets for this too.
yeah, common of each or in each color that this counts for. Also, just nice that it like helps you get to 5 mana, right? Like it's a land, or it's a expensive-ish creature that kind of helps cast itself. Yeah, we both gave this a pretty high grade. What do we give it?
We both gave it a B plus, and yeah, there'll be spots that you want to get planes both times, and there'll be spots that you want to get creatures both times. Like if you're flooded or if you're screwed, it kind of does it all.
Yep, for sure. Next one here, I believe not quite the last way uncommon, but we're close. Dawnstrike Vanguard is 3 and a white for a 4/5 lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than this creature. Very strange card. Like, a little bit
Scary,
small. Scary, yes, definitely. I feel like this is a card we see like once a year, where it's like big white thing that like threatens to put a bunch of counters on the team if you do something that like the set asks, and they never tend to be that good. I don't know. I feel like we had a few kind of close analogs.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the mount that like
yes.
put counters on everything, the 4/7 or whatever.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I was so I'm usually slightly lower than you, which is probably gonna bite me in the end. I gave this C minus. You gave it a much more likely D plus.
Yeah, just a bit of a weird one. Next up is Rescue Skiff. This is 5 and a white for a spacecraft. When it enters, return target creature or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. To turn it into a creature, 10 plus counters, turns into a flying 5/6. So a bit more expensive than your typical reanimation spell. I don't think enchantment matters all that much as far as like, I'm getting more for my mana. Not really. But then it does turn into like a pretty big flyer, and it kind of quote unquote self-cruise because it again quote unquote comes with the creature. So yeah, I think this was one I graded slightly higher than you, if I recall. I don't know. I think overall I like this card, but mostly as a splash. Like, this is a really nice card to splash in like a blue-green deck, a slower deck. Not really as much for like an actual like a. I mean, maybe you play in your red-white spacecraft deck, sure. But I'm seeing this as like a nice value card.
Yeah, you only really need 3 or 4 power.
Oh, sorry, Mark. One more time. One more time. Go ahead.
Are we good?
Yep.
You only really need 3 or 4 power.
It came undone. Sorry. Hey, like the second you started talking, it came with that. I apologize. Go, like, give me a little check, and then we'll fix this right after white.
Check.
Yep. Okay, you're good.
Okay. You only really need 3 or 4 power to make the station cost pretty reasonable here. I did come up on this maybe this morning's, which is why I thought I was higher, because we're actually both on a C plus for Rescue Skiff.
Okay, yeah. And do you see playing this in a white deck, or like are you more thinking splashy? I mean, obviously sometimes you will, but what kind of deck are you looking to play this in, I guess?
I think like just having a solid ETB where it's late enough in the game that probably something you care about has died. I think you'll play this in most all decks.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Which is partly the C plus grade is what is saying, right?
Totally, yeah. Okay, well, that's white. Thoughts on white? I've heard some folks say white is the worst color, or they think it's going to be the worst color. I'm not necessarily convinced, but I do think it's a little confused and maybe one of the weaker ones.
White's commons don't impress me. I gave by far the most D grades at common are in white. But it's got a lot of really good uncommon, so I still think there's something there.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I just want to answer this quick question because it's something that I've gotten a lot about the spacecrafts. Again, like people kind of not really loving them at first glance. The question is, when do you want to be tapping creatures instead of blocking or attacking? The answer is, kind of roughly when you deem it appropriate to. I think the implication with the question is like, oh, like, why wouldn't you just attack or block? Well, the board is stalled out, or your creatures are small enough that they can't attack into your opponent's big things. It's kind of just like an alternative route. It kind of like launders power and toughness, if you want to think about it that way for these spacecraft. So, like, you're just not always going to have good attacks. You're not always going to have good blocks. You're not going to, like, turbo out making them a creature most of the time, I don't think. But it's a really nice thing to just be able to, like, have the option to do at some point.
Yeah, battles were somewhat skill testing in that often people would throw all of their attackers at the battle, like way more than they needed to, just to flip it.
Yeah.
And you kind of got an edge from knowing how much was the minimum you needed to send there. I think there's some similarities here where if you just default your play to like, I'm just going to tap all my creatures all the time, it might not even be that bad, but there'll be really interesting spots where you have a couple creatures and you have to decide, okay, what are my envisioned blocks for next turn? And which creatures can I afford to spare from that to avoid getting run over? Or like, can I just afford to like take a whole bunch of damage next?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great way to put it.